The Untold Story with Martha MacCallum. Exclusive interviews with top newsmakers who share their inspiring stories of perseverance, positivity, and more. Now, here's Martha MacCallum.
So this week, America has gotten to know Amy Coney Barrett, watching her in hours of hearings and question and answer with the Senate Judiciary Committee. I'm sitting down today for the Untold Story with someone who knows a lot about this entire process. Mike Davis is the founder of the Article 3 Project. He's also the former chief counsel for nominations to the Senate Judiciary Committee under the chairman, Chuck Grassley, then at the time, and he's a former law clerk to Justice Gorsuch. Mike, great to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mike, for a long time, Amy Coney Barrett's name has been on the short list during the course of the 3 nominations, really, that the president has put on the court now. So why was it that she was always somebody to watch in this process?
I think that everyone saw this week why Judge Barrett was always someone to look out for. She is 48 years old. She graduated #1 in her class at Notre Dame Law School. She was the executive editor of the Law Review. She went on to clerk for 2 very prestigious judges, including Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court. She has been a law professor at Notre Dame Law School for the last 18 years, where she has won, I think it's 3 times, the Teacher of the Year from the students. She was nominated by President Trump for the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, an Indiana-based seat on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, more than 3 years ago, where she has participated in over 600 opinions, including writing nearly 100 opinions herself. She is a rock-solid judge. She's a constitutionalist. She is a textualist, which means that she follows the text as written and not the text as she wish it were written. And she's an originalist. She follows what that text meant at the time of its enactment, and not some fluid meaning that changes over the time based upon the political whims of those judges. We saw this week she's just a phenomenal nominee. She's poised. She didn't have any notes.
Which
she
is
batted
incredible.
Back all of the Democrat. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I know. I mean, have you ever seen that before, when someone walks into a hearing like that without any notes in front of them?
No, I mean, I was Justice Gorsuch's outside advisor, and I know he had many notes, and I was the staff leader for Justice Kavanaugh, and I know he had many notes. So I want to text both of them of the picture of their confirmation hearings versus Judge Barrett's confirmation hearing, and ask them why these Ivy League guys needed so many notes.
I wonder if, does she have a photographic memory? It seems almost as if anything she's ever read or studied or worked on is just in there in quick recall. It's almost like you can see the wheels turning, and it's all there. It's remarkable. I think that took so many of us aback.
Yeah, I mean, I remember her. I was the staff leader for her 7th Circuit hearing, and I just remember at the time, I'm like, wow, this is a brilliant judicial nominee. And she's been a brilliant judge, and I'm glad the American people got to see her this week. I mean, she just demonstrated her clear command of the law. And she did it in a way where she wasn't arrogant or overbearing. She did it in a way where it was very modest and welcoming. I mean, she's the best judicial nominee I've ever seen, and that says a lot, because I helped Gorsuch from the outside with his confirmation, and I helped Kavanaugh and nearly 200 others through the process before. So she is in a league of her own.
It's remarkable when you think about it that this president in his first term has had the opportunity to put, potentially, assuming that this goes as planned, 3 judges on the bench. I don't want to test your history, although I know you know so much about all of this. I don't know if that's ever happened before in one term, has it?
I have to verify this. I don't think it's happened since President Nixon. But it is a huge accomplishment for a president to get 3 justices in one term. And remember, back during the Nixon era, this is before the Supreme Court fights were so politicized. We saw that starting with Bork and Thomas. And back then it used to be the president would nominate. They may or may not have a hearing, and they would confirm the nominee immediately. Now they're just such drawn out political wars So no, it's a huge accomplishment for President Trump to be able to appoint 3 justices to the Supreme Court in less than 4 years.
I do not doubt that if the wheels had turned differently and Hillary Clinton was finishing her first term and Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed this close to the election, I would imagine, especially if she was in a tight race, that Hillary Clinton would probably do the same thing. I don't know. We'll never know the answer to that question. And my guess is that at this point she would say that that would not be the case. But there's obviously so much bad blood. And I don't know if we will ever go back, Mike, to the way things used to be, the sort of cordiality that surrounded this process and the 99 to 1 or 99 to 0 kind of votes that we saw for Scalia. Do we ever go back to that world?
I doubt it. And it's amazing to me that if you look at, and I'm not trying to be partisan here, I'm just trying to be just look at the facts. Look how Democrat Supreme Court nominees are treated, where they get bipartisan support, sometimes, like with Justice Ginsburg, overwhelming support. And then you contrast that with how Republican Supreme Court nominees are treated, like Bork, Judge Bork, who failed, Justice Thomas, who succeeded after a brutal fight, Justice Kavanaugh, who succeeded after a brutal fight. I think it's just a difference between the political parties, where the Republicans look at the judiciary in a more limited role, a critical role, but a more modest role than the Democrats look at the judiciary. The Democrats look at the judiciary as a super legislature, that if they can't get things passed through the elected branches of government, they'll just do it through the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts.
But do you think that changes?
There's a lot more at stake for Democrats.
If Joe Biden is elected,
sorry,
if Joe Biden's elected, do you think that when it comes his turn to put someone on the Supreme Court, if that happens, that Republicans will play hardball, or do you think they'll behave as they have in the past? I would imagine that would change. I mean, you can also point to the McConnell situation with Merrick Garland. I mean, many people go back to that moment as something that didn't sit right with a lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly tit for tat on both sides. I would say this, that if you look at the difference between Merrick Garland's nomination versus Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination now, that back then the Democrats controlled the White House and the Republicans controlled the Senate. Now we have Republicans controlling both. If you look historically at how this is done, we call it the 90% rule in this confirmation world. 90% of the time, when the same party controls the White House and the Senate, even in a presidential election year, they'll confirm a Supreme Court nominee. 90% of the time, they won't if the White House and the Senate are of different parties. So this is normal. You know, elections matter, and if you have a unified party between the White House and the Senate, Supreme Court nominees get confirmed. If you don't, they don't. It's pretty simple.
What did you think of the way that Democrats questioned her in this process?
I think that they learned their lesson the hard way back in 2018 with Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation. They went way over the top, way too far. At first, it was screaming and yelling over documents, which was silly to most people in the real world. But then they accused Justice Kavanaugh of serial gang rape. They brought in 6 allegations of serial gang rape, including those of Mike Lavenatti and his lying client, Julie Swetnick. So I think what they saw, and then look at the 2017 hearing for Judge Amy Coney Barrett on the 7th Circuit, when you had Senator Dianne Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, asking her whether the dogma lives loudly within her, actually telling her that the dogma lives loudly within her, and that was of concern to Dianne Feinstein. You had Dick Durbin on the Judiciary Committee, who is also the number 2 Democrat in the Senate, asking her whether she is Orthodox Catholic, whatever the heck that means. Mm-hmm. And so that backfired on them for both the Kavanaugh hearing and for the 7th Circuit hearing for Judge Barrett. I think this time what they were trying to do is be a lot more careful with how they were treating her and avoiding any whiff of a religious test. But I think what they'll do is they'll let the outside groups do the dirty work for them. And so I think people need to remember, right now we're at the point where we've been through the 3rd day of Judge Barrett's hearing. She did her intro the first day and took 2 days of questioning and finishing today. I think people need to remember that for Justice Thomas and Justice Kavanaugh at this same point, it was smooth sailing. It wasn't until after.
For the full podcast, go to foxnewspodcast.com.